What's up, everybody? Big Hurt 916, and you tuned in to another episode of Fresh Out. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. You know how we do it over here. Go to freshoutseries.com and buy you some merch. Wash your ass, split some wigs. Let's get busy. I got with me here today a special guest. I was on his podcast, and I'm like, man, I got to get you on my show, man, so we can get your story. And I have here with me Johnny Mitchell. This guy has an amazing story, and you've probably seen him on some other podcasts, but I want to get right to some meat and potatoes before I get his backstory, because this man has dealt with the cartel. Yeah, you see Narcos. And I got a couple other homies who dealt with the cartel, but I want to get his story. So Johnny, man, I know you were in the game pretty heavy, man, before you went to the pen, and you've had some pretty crazy narco experiences, man. What is something that sticks out in your experiences having dealt with, like, the criminal element in the cartel? You know, a lot of people see stuff on Netflix and they don't, they're thinking, oh man, is this real? Is this not real? Cocaine Cowboys. What's something you would like to share with the audience about your experiences with the cartel?
Well, I can tell you some myths about the drug dealer, first of all. Everybody gets high on their own supply. I'm finding that out even more so now that I'm doing my own channel. Like, we were down in Mexico, about 6 months ago, interviewing, cartel members down there, and they're doing coke all day. So this whole Scarface, like, don't get high on your own supply, I mean, nobody's listened to that rule since ever. Secondly, I feel like dealing with the cartel, in my experience, it was real low key and almost unremarkable in terms of, like, the people, right? Like, I was buying pot wholesale from, Sinaloan farmers, essentially, right? They were working for, like, a lieutenant. This is back in, like, 2007 through 2010. They had, their lieutenant, who had come up from Culiacan, Sinaloa. That's where they grow the best weed in Mexico, is in that Golden Triangle. And they were now in Northern California setting up a grow. And they had brought, like, 10 guys with them to, set up irrigation, plant the seeds, tend to them. And they're way up in, like, the Siskiyou forest, like, hours and hours just straight up a mountain. And just like Mexicans, they're willing to do whatever it takes, right? But these guys didn't even know what state they were in, So it was pretty wild, like, meeting them for the first time. I was scared out of my mind. I figured these dudes would have AK-47s and, have cowboy hats on and shit. And it's nothing like that. They're just farmers. No cholo, no fucking LA Dodger tattoo, nothing, right? So it was kind of a trip. Like, they don't see it as, like, they know what they're doing is illegal, but it's just a business to them. It's pretty, so they're very low key with how they operate.
So this up towards, like, the Humboldt area?
Yeah, this is Northern California. Northern California is Southern Oregon. So it would be the Humboldt Mountains, the Mendocino Mountains, the Siskiyou Mountains.
Okay.
And I had several different guys in that region that I would meet in, like, a hotel room. They would drive down from the grow sites with the processed marijuana and with whatever I ordered. Say I need a 50-pack. They'd be like, okay, I'm available Thursday, and I would drive all the way down from Portland, Oregon, 10 hours, and then I just get a little dumpy hotel room, and I get a knock on the door, and 3 guys would be there.
So were you like in the Santa Rosa area? Did you ever go through the area?
I wasn't that
Sonoma?
far south.
Okay.
I would Garberville. Look up the city of Garberville.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the gateway to Mendocino.
Okay.
And it's a tiny little nothing town, and it doesn't even feel like California. It really feels like its own. It feels like Oregon. It's cold. It's dreary. It's working class. Nothing's going on except for weed growing. And back in the day, before legalization, you couldn't get a hotel room. Like, you had to call at least a week in advance, because all those tiny little hotels full, because it was dudes like me from everywhere across the country coming into town, renting a room and meeting their growers, their suppliers. Yeah, millions of dollars going through that tiny little town every week. Pretty insane.
Yeah, the reason I asked because I remember like this is back in like probably like '98. I used to live in the Roanoke Park, Santa Rosa area, and I had a friend that went to Humboldt State, and it was back then it was a totally different game.
Yeah.
So if you had you had 5 P's of Humboldt gold, I mean that's a lot.
That's
of
a lot.
money.
That's a lot of work.
Back then,
That's a lot of work.
A lot of work. I
Yeah.
mean. Pizos, we were selling them for 4,500, 5,000.
Exactly.
I mean, dude, a QP was what, 12, 14, 1,500 bucks.
I know.
You know, so it was a different era back then in 1998, 1997, 98. Yeah, it was very different. But the same thing. It's like that Humboldt. They had their own. These families have been growing for years. It was very.
Yeah.
You had to know somebody. You couldn't even go up there. I mean, it was just a whole nother.
Yeah.
You know, it's a whole nother crowd up there.
Yeah, he had to be really careful because you fucking disappear up there.
Oh, yeah.
too, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a couple of those guys. Like I called them rednecks. Like it would either be the Mexicans or the rednecks. And the rednecks were those families that had been there for generations, and they were like electricians and farmers and hippies, old hippies from San Francisco, and they moved north and they start growing wheat, and now their kids are growing wheat. So yeah, I had 4 or 5 different re-ups who I could hit up, right, to try to find, the best ticket, the best price, the best quality, whatever I needed.
Did you ever have to worry about jack boys or anything when you were in the game?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we got jacked. We've experienced that. Like, it's wild to think like 5 pounds could get you killed back in the day, or get you, tied up.
Yeah.
And we had people roll up in our crib with ski masks and shotguns, and yeah, I went through all that, man. We were involved in some of that, on the other end of it, right?
Yeah. Well, I know people think like, oh, we game, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, shit, even when I was in the game back then in 1998, and then seeing how it's transitioned, now it's legal. But shit, dude, I've seen, in Sacramento, dude, if somebody heard you had, 20, 30 pounds, somebody run up in your crib, where you live at. People, it's desperation, you know what I mean? Because it's like that amount of money, people feel it can change their life, but really they're just going to burn through it. But I always tell people, man, long term, securing a plug is harder than maintaining a plug. So if you get a good plug, you want to, keep that plug steady rather than why would you jack somebody who's bringing the work?
You never jack your plug. You might jack somebody, if you can get 5 pounds of hydro Kush off somebody, I mean, you flip that for 30 G's, now you're in the game. So it actually made sense economically. It's a way that I knew a few people got their start, was like, because when you're 19, where are you going to get 30 grand from? You needed that just to be able to talk to somebody who had weight like that, right? You couldn't even go talk to growers at Humboldt unless you were picking up at least 10 packs, but probably more like 20 pounds. So you can't go get a loan for that. You can't get a small business loan. So you either work your way up or you go take it from somebody, and now you're a player.
Now, how important is your rep in the game? Because I tell a lot of people too, when you are in the game and people hear like, oh man, this guy right here, he jacks on. So it's like people are like, oh, I don't know. So your rep is very important along with getting to the plug as well, because it's all who you know.
Well, you don't get caught.
Yeah. Yeah, that too. Yeah. They don't know who did it. So that plays a big factor. As at what point did you really start seeing that aspect of the Wii game as something like, damn, dude, this is a lot bigger than I thought it could ever be?
2010 to actually 2009. That's when I started shipping my product to the East Coast, and that's when you could double your money off of a pound of weed.
Yeah.
So before in Oregon, where I was selling pounds for like maybe a $200-300 markup, right? I could sell it for a minimum $1,000 markup. So if I was getting a pound for $2,500, let's say, in Northern California, I could send it to New Jersey and get $3,500, $4,000 for it. So now I can sell 20 a week like that. That's $1 million a year business without breaking a sweat. So that's really when I saw the potential. I was like, oh wow, I can get rich off of this.
Now, as you started to elevate in the game, and then you got these cartel connections, was there an out that you've seen, or did you just think about, okay, if I can continue this, I can get to this point? Was there a number, or was there?
Yeah, the number kept going up. You know, the number when you're making more and more money in the drug game, the number you need to get out expands exponentially too. I thought, let me stash a couple of $1,000,000 because I knew, you know, by 2010, 2011, it was pretty obvious, like, weed is going to be legal very soon, especially on the West Coast. So it's like, it was kind of a race to just get as much as we could because we knew that, you know, the laws were going to change and we were going to get fucked. And even before I went in, before I got locked up, I saw the growers get more and more desperate, right? Because there were more and more people growing, right, semi-legally, and therefore the supply was up. So the price of their product was coming down and down and down. So I was able to play people off of each other, and you know, they would volunteer to now drive the product up to me, right? There's a little bit of competition now. So I knew eventually the price on the East Coast, where I was shipping my work to, was going to go down as well. So the writing was on the wall. But I guess, you know, whatever, $2,000,000 is what I was going after. You know, and I would have been there, and you know, I was a year and a half out. Yeah. But you know, it's life. It's the game.
You know, the game, the ups and downs. It's crazy because it's like, you know, I've ran across a lot of people that were in the game, and it's like, you know, trying to, you know, making that transition out. It's always like, damn, okay, can I hit this part and, you know, maybe jump into some real estate, or maybe start this company or do this. And you know, people think, you know, you see these people, I'm like, oh, you just, you know, pull your bootstraps, work hard. And it's like, dude, the biggest families in this country were all drug dealers. Cecil Rhodes, you know, the Friskers, all these people are either pharmaceutical cocaine, legal cocaine manufacturers, or opium people, or these old, and then they just legitimize through all these other businesses, man, if you do your homework. I mean,
Cecil Rhodes, the Rhodes
Scholar? Yeah.
Wow. What was his family into?
Cecil Rhodes, during the opium wars, were going on between Britain and China was being flooded. His family was moving opium from England and the United States to China, and through those trade routes, and literally brought China to its knees. But they made millions of dollars through the opium trade, and it's the same thing. There's a couple other.
Was the East India Company? Was that part of it?
Yeah, tied into that. East India Company. The company. There's another faction out of Dutch. There was a Dutch company that was legally making cocaine. All these companies now that have passed laws that are locking up drug dealers were all drug dealers, and to shut the back door is, you know, let's rally to lock these guys up, because eventually they're legitimized and be sitting right here next to me.
Yeah, it's funny like that. The older generation always wants to close the door after them. I see that with comedy. I see that with like entrenched Hollywood, like Judd Apatow. You know, he was and these other like comedy giants, people that, you know, used to direct like some of the funniest movies, right? With the, you know, edgy, funny comedy. Now they're the ones who are like, go woke. You know, if you're not a woke comic, but it's like, it was cool when you did it though.
Exactly.
But now you want to cut out the competition. By saying, well, this is the way we do it now. You know what I mean? So it's always, that's funny business. You know, that's real. That's some real fuck shit.
I want to get into that too, and talk about Hollywood on some other stuff. Big Herc 916, Johnny Mitchell, fresh out. Stay tuned. If you're tired of smelling like stanky butt, funky armpits, wash your ass. Go to FreshOutSeries.com and pick you up a bar of soap.